Regent Yang, you are live.
All right, thank you.
If you call the meeting to
All
order,
right,
I'll take
thank
your
you
word.
everyone for this meeting. Let me ask the secretary to call the roll.
Thank you. Committee Chair Yang.
Here.
Regent Japanen.
Present.
Regent Santiago.
Here.
And our welcome to our ex officio, Charlene Casamento.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Chair Yang, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let me ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? All right, agenda passes. Let me ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes as of September 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? No. Thank you. Prior meeting minutes as of September 11th are approved. Okay, on to today's discussion points. So a couple items here today. There's a reasonable amount, and we do have executive session again, so I just want to keep things moving a little bit. The first item on here is tech innovation, the incredibly vague tech innovation. I put this on here because in response to Chair Guay's comments and some conversations that we had following our prior board meeting, full board meeting at Eastern, around innovation and around the role of System Office and this board to highlight what's going on. And I thought, you know, as opposed to constantly focusing on cyber and kind of issues with the environment of our technology, we actually think about what we could do to highlight what's good about technology and innovation across all of our different campuses. So it's kind of open forum. Let's spend 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most, just really thinking about ideas. What I don't want to do is really create a whole new level of anything, right? Like this shouldn't be, this is a little bit let's uplift and call attention to people that are doing good things in technology, specifically things that are innovating, that are pushing things forward for our students. I was just thinking, something as simple as we could ask, the CIOs at each campus, each school, to go out and just see what they see, right? And then call attention to something, and maybe we can have some of those things present, some of those interesting, cool things present at future sessions of this committee, and or we have a special meeting or even an in-person meeting to call some attention to some of those things. What do people think?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah. I can't see your hand if you got it, but Lloyd, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Lloyd. Would it be helpful if we were to bring sort of an innovative presentation to this committee meeting each time or every other time or so, just so that this committee could get wind of some of that interesting work that's being done?
Yes, I think that'd be great. If it's something then that we can leave with you, Lloyd, or maybe again, we can have the various CIOs of the various schools, kind of nominate some things, and then we can kind of just, between the meetings, figure out what we want to do, and then, maybe start calling attention to some of those things, just so we get those on the record, give people their chance to have a whole 3 or 4 people look at their the YouTube channel, be forever archived in the annals of the Board of Regents of what they're doing. I don't know, but seriously, I mean, let's do it. Like let's highlight some stuff.
We can do that. Thank you.
Other ideas from the committee or anybody else? Sorry? Anybody else have any comments on this?
No, I think
okay.
What Lloyd offered up is great.
All right, great. So let's do that.
Ted,
let's see
Ted,
how that works.
Ted, it's Marty. I just want to let you know I'm on the call, just listening in to learn.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
So Lloyd, that's great. Let's try it that way. Let's see if we can get some things highlighted, and then if it turns out there's enough stuff that we want to do it, maybe we just do it in a special meeting, right? So we don't have to shortchange people.
I can work with George and work through the CIO Council to identify participants and schedule it out a few meetings.
My only request, Mr. Chair, and to you as well, Lloyd, is I really don't want this to turn into a bunch of busy work and someone spends hours and hours on a presentation. If this is something that can be done on just sort of giving us a voiceover on what's already in progress, that'd be my preference. If this turns into a make work item, then please let us know so we can rethink it. We got plenty to
100%.
do.
This should not be made work. This
Okay.
should be opportunity to highlight, not to create more for people's plates.
Well, I think I appreciate the comment and the sentiment. I think the CIOs and their teams would be pleased to show off their work with you.
Good.
Awesome. And again, let's not draw the line on administrative staff, right? Faculty, students. You know, anything interesting people want to highlight, things that are pushing things, you know, making things better for students in our various campuses. Okay, great. Anything else on this? Okay, sorry. Then in that case, let's move on to AI policy. Lloyd, can you or whomever else give us an update on where things are at with our prior request to create an AI policy?
Let me start with the general statement, then I'm going to ask Peter to step in. Mr. Chair, one of the things we discussed is the need, as we develop an AI policy, to have broad participation in that development, particularly to make sure that faculty across the system are deeply involved. So Peter and I have been talking about different ways that we can do that. And I'll stop there and ask Peter to give a general update on the AI policy and some of the things we've been talking about in terms of outreach and participation.
Sure. Thank you, Lloyd. So we've been in the process of developing the AI policy for probably 4 months now, 3 to 4 months. It's gone out to a lot of internal stakeholders. George, I think, is leading or co-chairing a task force at Central. So we've reached out to that group. The Charter Oak provost, Dr. Ferreira, also had an AI advisory committee over the summer. That's also gone out to those individuals to provide feedback. It's gone to the data privacy officer, as well as the privacy advisory group for their feedback. And so I've been able to collect internally from those groups that have been associated with AI that I could identify to gather their input. And I think originally we just put together, we kind of put together a bunch of stuff on a document and let people look at it and provide comments, you know, good or bad, so that we could get all that feedback back and create a more solid draft to present to the larger community. And the communication path that Lloyd was mentioning, we would like to find a way to be able to hand this off to faculty to get their input. We just have to try to identify what channels to use for that. What is the best approach to do that? Right now, that's an issue that we have to figure out. I think what we've been doing, and George has been very helpful on this, at least on the central side, is, you know, I would hand things over to George so that he could present it to faculty senate, but that's just central. So I want to make sure we have a broader a group of faculty to be able to provide that input.
Okay. All right. Good. First of all, of course, I think that's great that we're doing this way. I mean, shared governance is definitely something we believe in. But beyond that, we want to create a policy that makes sense. So we want to hear from all voices, and we want something that people can comply with, right? And so having a lot of people involved in the authoring process is critical, and as input into what we come up with. Peter, do you have any ideas of next steps? Can we get some kind of dates around this? Just bearing in mind, this is definitely something a moving target, right? So let's get something, even if it's less than we were anticipating. Go ahead.
Hey, Ted, just FYI, you've got Pam has her hand up. She was first, and mine as well after that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. For some reason, I can't see in my view people's hands, but go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. Two paths, Peter, that you might consider starting your investigation would be through our faculty advisory committee. the board has a faculty advisory committee made up of both university and community college and Charter Oak representatives, and they meet monthly. I or Lloyd can put you in touch with their chair and vice chair, and we can get that work moving for you. The other thing is to contact Regent Ira Bloom and Ainsley Diamond on the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, as they will have contacts with the provosts as well as the SGOs if you have, if you believe that a constituency of students would be helpful for that approach as well. So the board does have resources at your disposal if you need to create that pathway for review. That's it. Just a few
Pam.
suggestions. Mhm.
Ari?
I just want to understand, maybe we're going to recap. I know we talked about this, I believe, last meeting, and you touched on it a little bit right now, but what are we trying to achieve with the AI policy itself? I'm just cognizant of not trying to boil the ocean here and trying to understand what is our critical objective for the AI policy, and focusing on getting the critical path completed before we take on too much. And I'll color it a little bit by saying my view is I believe what we were trying to achieve with this AI policy was to create a system-wide policy on the safe use of AI from a cybersecurity perspective. Now, I realize AI policy could go into a whole bunch of other things, especially when you've got some people doing research, some people doing R&D, there's experimentation potentially in the labs, plus you've got people maybe doing AI related stuff on their personal computers connected to the guest networks and so on and so forth. So this could end up being a 600-page policy that would be unusable. So from my standpoint on this committee, what I want to get out the door as quickly as possible is the cybersecurity focused AI, call it the fair use policy, which I would like to see be on at most one page normal space type. So I'll leave it there, Peter, and just see, your reaction to that, alignment to the concept, and how that aligns to the work you're doing.
Yeah, I think that is exactly the direction that we're trying to take with this. So this is looking at primarily, it's not looking at academic integrity or those kind of issues. It's specifically looking at operation or administrative use of institutional resources and data. And AI is just another, it's really, if you break it down, it's just another piece of software. I know there's a lot of magical, mystical thinking around AI, but we do have policies, we do have acceptable use codes of conduct. All those things need to apply in the use of this technology, just like in any other technology. And so this is really geared for, because Gen AI is, and I'm specifically pointing out generative AI versus AI in general. I know that can be a strange sentence to say, but Gen AI, because of it, the power of that natural language processing adds to the ability to have it used by really anybody. And so, we have to identify the risks to particularly privacy.
So with respect to shared governance, it seems to me that relative to the basic sort of security. So I'll give you like a clear example. My view is you should not be taking PHI or PII and putting it into ChatGPT, right? I mean, it's like that basic, right? You should not be creating or installing an LLM, either you created or purchased or whatever on, CSCU resources in any event or whatever. So I guess I wonder, as we think about going through the shared governance, are we going on an approach, Peter, of saying, hey, from a CIO, CISO perspective, we want to adopt this basic security focused policy relative to AI, which to you, I agree with you. When people think about that, it's mostly generative AI and the LLM related concepts, and just sort of get adoption of that and stay away from, at least at this stage, all the other items, which certainly would, I think, you'd get a lot more feedback on. I think I'm good there. I'll let you react to that.
Yeah, that is the intent of what we're working on. And the reason for faculty participation in that is really because we want to make sure that what we put in the policy isn't, in fact, interfering with academic freedom or academic integrity policies. We want to keep that kind of those lanes of separation. So getting their feedback to see, what concerns they might have, where that might bleed over. That's kind of really what I'm looking for from the feedback from faculty.
Got it. So last question. I know Charlene's hand's up, so I'll relinquish the microphone or the floor or whatever we call it when we're virtually talking. Are we starting from a blank page in these meetings, or are we starting with, a straw man or a steel man? I don't know how far along we are. That says, hey, this is what we think good looks like. Please comment. What approach are we taking?
Yes, that's what I had sent out, was what what we had gathered from our research of other institutions, as well as discussions with external, with Gartner consultation on policy, EDUCAUSE research, and we kind of put together, a kind of a smattering of different clauses and statements, just to get what people, get some people talking about it, or at least thinking about it, so they could provide some feedback. But yes, we do have, we are not working from a blank piece of paper. We do have kind of templates that we will fill in with that feedback. And so I expect that we'll have, to Chair Yang's, I think, question is, from a timeline standpoint, I expect to be able to get something back, or I'm hoping to get something back for the review of this committee in the December Technology Committee, so
Okay.
that if it does want to go forward, then it could be brought to the full board. And I think as a follow-up board meeting on the 19th. But that would be my target right now, is to try to get that. So getting the feedback from the faculty is really critical from a timing standpoint.
Okay. Thank you, Peter and Ari. Charlene?
Thank you. You may have all spoken about this at a prior meeting, but on February 1st of 2024, the state of Connecticut issued an AI policy framework that is required for executive branch agencies. So as you work through what extra things you might need, or to the extent that there are policies in the executive branch that you don't think apply to higher education, I think that's a good spot, right? Is at the end of the day, you would hope that whatever policy you're putting in place at least is complying somewhat to this framework that the rest of state government, right? So it's almost like, are you adding more things to that framework, or are you taking things away from that framework? And I'm not suggesting it needs to be the same, but I do think when you circle back and you're ready to put pen to paper, appreciating, have you created a more restrictive, a less restrictive, or kind of equal policy? And again, I'm not an IT expert, but I'm just sharing what I'm aware of in terms of our own, what we have in place for the executive branch.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I have reviewed that policy, as well as some of the other proposals that the legislature was proposing last year, because they're going to try again. So there may be more guidelines coming down the pipe. So we are aware of those. I think that the key, as Ari says, is we're trying to be a little bit more surgical with this. There are other items covered in that policy that are also important. But again, we don't want to put a little bit cart before the horse here. We want to just really kind of man the walls a little bit and make sure we're not leaking student data, which is obviously a big no-no. And other gotchas here. So that's our primary purpose here. So it's significantly less thorough than that policy would be. But yes, absolutely, we don't intend, we certainly want to be cognizant of what's there if we decide to do something different. Okay, I'm going to move things along, just because, again, we got a lot of stuff to go on. Anyone else want to talk about this particular bit? AI policy? Okay, great. Point 3 should be pretty quick. As part of the biennium budget requests that was brought to the Finance Committee last week or this week, There were several technology-related items that have not been brought to this committee, which are part of our charter. So there are some items here. I don't actually want to go through these here. I think this is probably better served just with additional information or offline with questions from the various committee members to CFO Blanchard and his team as needed to go through them. But I did ask Pam to append to this agenda the items that do have a technology component. Now, some of these are unclear whether they are, the depth that they will have a technology component. So equipment, we are assuming does include, but what exactly that means, a little bit more to drill down into. So I'm just going to leave it there unless someone has any other comments here. I just made one final comment that the bit here that is talking about CT State University infrastructure, technology, and telecom upgrades includes a lot of strategic things that I know that this committee has asked in the past the system office team, as well as John's team, Maduko's team, to review together with us. And these may or may not be applicable in light of what strategic changes we make there. And this is ongoing, as part of the conversations of how we are taking pieces and moving them to CT State, right? So I think that particular bit, that kind of, $21 million, $17 million spend, there are items that will need to be in here. I'm not sure these are the right items. Again, let's do that review offline, so that the members of this committee have a chance to weigh in on that. And if necessary, we can defer some of these pending development of that full strategy of how we will take our various components and share them between CT State and the system office. Lloyd, do you have any other comments on that? Okay.
Lloyd, you're on mute.
Oh, go ahead.
No, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you, Regent Yang. I think I just want to remind the regents that this is a process that starts well before we get to this particular meeting, and even well before the committee was stood up. So we certainly will change our process so that we can bring IT capital requests to this committee for sort of substance evaluation of the item being sought. So we will work with you, Regent Yang, to provide a process by which we bring this material to this body.
Great, thank you.
But
Charlie,
typically, just so that you know, this is not developed by itself here at System Office. This is developed in collaboration with the CIOs at the campus levels. And these are, to the extent that one wants to call it a wish list, it's a wish list of our presidents, of our institutional presidents. So I just want to make sure that is clear.
Thank you. Charlene, is your hand up again, or is that from last time?
I'm sorry, it was up from before. But I just want to be clear. So these items here, Lloyd, represent the wish list from the campuses. Is that what you said, as I understood it?
So I don't like to use that term, but.
But is that the term you use?
I know it is the term I use.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But yes, it is. These are what the campuses are requesting. These are requests we've put forward regularly, but they just have not been met through the bond commission. Of course, that's their prerogative, but these are requests that we've submitted regularly. I think Regent Yang's interest is making sure we think more strategically about how we make these asks, so that we're in we have a better chance of being successful.
Yes, and absolutely, given a lot of the cyber concerns and things that we've been talking about, there are, again, maybe necessitate some infrastructural components to the strategy that we will then outline. Okay, so yes, more on that to come for members of this committee. Thank you very much. Let me move on to Wi-Fi on campuses, and I would just say I'll time box this because we need about 20 minutes or so for executive session, and this could go on forever. So this topic is on here because in our last meeting, I think, was that the finance meeting? I think it was.
It was the finance meeting.
It was, right, that Brendan Cunningham, the faculty representative on the board from Eastern, raised some concerning issues that he had with the Wi-Fi situation of what's going on at his campus. I do not want to drill into that. This is not a fact-finding body in that sense. However, I do want to point out that I myself had Wi-Fi issues on campuses. I'm sure other people have. And I think it is certainly the prerogative of this committee, as this falls under technology. It's probably one of the most, if not close to the most visible form of technology that everyone has going on campus. And that from a student standpoint is water, right? Wi-Fi is water. There's no water, you know, they can't work. They can't live. And this is a very critical and important piece for us to meet our goals of student success, is to have great Wi-Fi. So on that note, I open this to the committee and others to weigh in on the best way to do this. Again, I do not want to create work here. However, I think it is appropriate for this committee to know the status of Wi-Fi, and therefore I think I would ask the various CIOs across the entities, and then in this case maybe into the campus level between CT State, for their most recent site surveys in terms of Wi-Fi and network. And if they don't have that information, well, certainly the age of that information, and if they don't have that information or that information is old, to not do it again yet, but to report to this committee in that case, right? There's a further thing we could conceivably do, which I don't think makes that much sense, which is to just try to understand kind of the complaint by complaint level. Again, as a technologist, I'm sure Ari and George and others will chime in here, a lot of things are perceived as Wi-Fi issues that may not actually be Wi-Fi issues or network issues, right? So I'm not sure there's a lot of good data in that, but I do want to see what information each of our locations has regarding site surveys. And George, let me call on you, because you can maybe articulate what you do at Central, and then that might be a good reasonable thing to say, here's information that was readily available, at least for this committee, to see if there's further issues that we need to drill into, and or if there's infrastructural things that we need to address.
Can I, hey, George, I apologize. Just before you go, Chair Yang, if you don't mind, can I just before he goes, I just want to double down a little bit on what you said. I think to the extent and I think it was hit on, you know, right at the end there, that where Ted was talking about Wi-Fi issues aren't always Wi-Fi issues. And so to just be specific about the complaint that we received or heard about at the last meeting was that during classes or at some points during the day, Wi-Fi is disabled for mobile phones, and then they're forced to get on the cellular network. And the explanation as to why that happened was because it was bogging down the Wi-Fi. So that's just some context. And what I'm interested in on a broad level is the view of the speed of the network and its availability to both the critical infrastructure, which I perceive the critical infrastructure to be first and foremost campus security, followed by faculty's ability to teach. I'm sure they use internet and network related items in the classroom, so that would be priority 2. And then priority 3 would be student Wi-Fi, if that's separated from the thing I'm going to give priority 4, which is public Wi-Fi, you know, just anonymous Wi-Fi. So I just would love to understand at some point the view to can I just say Ted? The Chairman Yang thing's tough, but the Chairman Yang brought up, Ted's good, that Ted brought up relative to you know, the campuses, just if you guys view the campuses as appropriate or lacking in those areas.
Yes, good points. Okay, George.
Sure, and I can perhaps one of the things that we can include, many of the campuses performed a Cisco upgrade network infrastructure, both edge, distro, and wireless. So I can say this summer, you know, we replaced 1,400 access points. So it's possible that some of the campuses haven't completed that conversion. You know, we augmented a number of student workers and university assistants to assist us locally, and so other schools, you know, mileage may vary. So I think I could work with Lloyd and his team. We can put a template together. We can certainly look at, you know, what is, you know, how many access points are out there, what's the coverage indoors, outdoors, Have they all completed the conversion? Where are they in the conversion process, right? It's possible there's two wireless controllers, and that's part of what's creating the problem. And then let's identify, if there are known bottleneck issues. I know that, we worked with Verizon as a telecom provider when we built our new Applied Innovation Hub. It's a LEED certified building. It's great. It also has a very tight RF, radio frequency envelope. You couldn't get if you were a Verizon customer, you weren't getting in there. So we were 90 days working with Verizon corporate to put a tower and then add bandwidth. And so, I think we should acknowledge that the CIOs may be able to represent this is a known problem, and we are working with the appropriate people to solve that problem. And I think that'd be helpful. So we can certainly put a report together. I'll say all the campuses are connected on the Connecticut Education Network. All the CSUs have a 10 gig link and are all going to 40 this year. And so if we're one of the larger ones, we're between 2 and 5 gig in bandwidth. So pipe speed, raw WAN, internet speed should not be the concern that this group has.
If I could just, that sounds great, George, and just in the view of, again, no limiting make work and not boiling the ocean, we could just start with a very basic campus by campus, good, fair, poor rating of the buckets, wired network, Wi-Fi for students, et cetera. And then any commentary to your point around saying, hey, we give this campus an A, but the lead building is a D, is beyond poor if you're Verizon, and as you mentioned. So just let's start with the least amount of make work, just to give us a sense of where you guys think things are, would be good.
Yeah, for those who have switched to the new wireless controllers, those maps are built into the controller. It won't be a make work project. It's going to be a quick lift.
Perfect. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it is certainly, look, we all understand that the Wi-Fi is not a monolith. There are obviously signal issues and what have you. So the more, again, we don't want to create work. We also don't want to create a resolution where resolution doesn't help. I think overall grade level, then kind of like a major facility grade level would be useful on various campuses, the larger campuses, certainly. Again, the point of this is that this is not, I think people observe this. This is something that we actually probably need to get ahead of. I do now recall certain conversations about this happening on CT State campuses, right? And this was kind of like related to, or I think it was falsely related to cuts in services as to why there were Wi-Fi issues. Again, it doesn't matter. This is something that is very important. Thank you, Art, for pointing out that we do have security infrastructure that sits on this Wi-Fi as well, right? So this is super important for student experience, student safety, and therefore let's get it right. Anyone else have any comments on Wi-Fi network? Okay. All right. That does it for the public portion of this meeting. Unless anyone has anything else that they want to cover. Okay. In that case, before I call for a motion to move to executive session, let me state that the committee will move to executive session for the purpose of discussing matters under Connecticut General Statute 1-200-6C. No votes will be taken in executive session. The committee asks that CFO Blanchard, George Claffey, Peter Carey, as well as appropriate deputies that you may need, join the committee in executive session. Additionally, there will be no discussion, action, or votes by the committee following executive session. The only action following executive session will be a declaration of adjournment by me. Therefore, allow me to call for a motion to move to executive session for the purpose I've described and to adjourn by my declaration as chair when that discussion is completed. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor? Any objections? Motion carries. The open portion of our meeting has ended. The secretary, please stop the live stream. We're good?
Live stream stopped.
Thank you.
Okay.